Dog Works Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
Start your day tomorrow with The Daily Dog with Michelle Forto, the morning podcast on Dog Works Radio. Apple Podcast reviewer Patty Christensen calls it funny, smart, and filled with all the info I want to know about dogs. I love this show. Wake up with The Daily Dog. Available on Dog Works Radio on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your shows.
Radio Free Palmer 89.5 KVRF presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find all of our episodes over on dogworksradio.com. You can also find us over on social media. Just search for Dogworks Radio, and you can find our podcast on just about anywhere you listen to your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. And joining us, calling in from California, is our co-host. His name is Alex Stein. Alex, how's it going?
It's going great, Robert. It's nice to talk to you again. It's important to remind people that even though the Iditarod and the Yukon Quest and most of the major races are over, that really mushing is a year-round sport. There's a little bit of a break after the season, but before too long, people will be up and starting their training regimen again.
That is true. Here at our kennel, we are in the midst of doing all of our spring and summer chores. That includes building about 30 dog houses this summer. Looking forward to doing that, as well as getting ready for the dogs to do some free running and some fall training when that comes up as well.
Yeah, and even though we're past the most of the major races, there still are a few minor races that are going on. There are some Iditarod qualifiers that just happened. And I know that one of the things we wanted to mention was in the Kobuk 440, which just finished, that Nick Pettit once again won that race. So Nick Pettit sort of almost unstoppable this year. And really, if it hadn't been for that taking that little detour in Iditarod, I think it's very likely he would have just run away with everything. And as it is, he won every race that he entered this year with the exception of Iditarod.
Yeah, he did. I was reading an article this afternoon saying that he is ready to rock and roll, and his dogs are firing on all cylinders, so to speak. So I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next couple of years. You know, we've talked about sort of those 5-year or so cycles when a person just has an awesome dog team where they're at the right age and that training is just clicking on all cylinders. And I think that's where Nick's at, don't you think?
I really do. And I think also he is going to have something to prove next year in Iditarod. And a lot of people, he made a remark that after the race in an interview, that he felt that the Iditarod really needed to make sure that the trails were much better marked. A lot of people thought that was, I don't know, maybe poor sportsmanship for him to say that, or for him to blame what happened on the Iditarod. So I've got to think that when he's coming back next year, he's really going to want this even more than he did this past year.
You know, I totally agree with you as well. So again, congratulations to Nick and his remarkable season, in particular with all of the mid-distance races that he ran. And like you said, he was the winner of all those, every one that he entered, including the very short races like the Freddy's Midnight Run, which is only 100 miles, all the way up to that Kobuk 440 race, which is the longest mid-distance race, at least up here in Alaska. The rest of our show, Alex, is about some Iditarod updates. This is always happens in the off season. Things are going on with rule changes, and there's been a lot of talk in the offseason about board changes and the like. But before we jump over to that, even the Iditarod is not immune to data breaches, are they?
No, they absolutely aren't. And this is something that is so important in the modern world. And it's a very, very difficult thing to keep data safe and to keep people's information safe. And I know that there was an issue that was just announced with Iditarod.
Right. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I thought it was interesting, especially in this day and age. I know there was a huge breach with one of the credit bureaus earlier this year. I believe it was Equifax, and nobody is immune from this anymore, including all of the volunteers' information at Iditarod. And not only did they have enough problems sort of in the limelight, but now they have some problems in the back room, so to speak, with something like this going on that could prove to be quite a problem, especially if people's personal information like mailing addresses and possibly date of birth and that sort of stuff.
Right. And I think in the particular case of the data that was stolen, that there was also some social security numbers that were compromised. And really, if you have someone's name and address and date of birth and social security number, that's pretty serious. That's really what all you would need for identity theft.
Right, for sure. So hopefully nothing nefarious is going on with that, and nobody loses any of their identities out there with this breach. So there's also been quite a bit of talk about some information from that consulting group and sort of their recommendations. What do you have on that, Alex?
Right. So the Iditarod in before this year's race, they had hired the Foraker Group, which is a nonprofit consulting firm, to make some recommendations for some changes that they could make, some institutional changes that would help. There was a report that was issued, I believe, late last year that was supposed to be confidential, but ended up being leaked to the press. And there's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of especially with the Dallas CV thing, and Dallas basically calling for the entire board to resign. And then the board said that they weren't going to do anything. They weren't going to make any major changes like that before the race. But now they have a couple of board of directors meetings in April. There was one that was just held. There's another one that's going to be held in, I believe, on the 26th. And they announced that Iditarod is considering starting to implement some of those changes called for by the Foraker Group. And the biggest one that they've announced so far is that they are going to get rid of elected positions on the board. So there won't be any board positions that will be elected from the general membership of Iditarod, but they are going to also move to sort of a self-appointed board, but also get rid of board members who have active conflicts of interest. So there won't be any, my understanding is there won't be any more board members who either are participants in the race or who have family members who are participants in the race.
First off, from that first one that you mentioned about the self-appointed group, what are your thoughts on that? That seems to be a little bit behind the scenes, so to speak. I mean, if everybody already knows everybody and they can kind of just self-appoint each other, doesn't that just sort of perpetuate the good old boys network as it is today?
That is exactly my point about this, is that it seems that if they are going for a greater transparency and a greater accountability, I don't know how that fits into that goal. It would seem that if you wanted to really make sure that that everything is being done properly and that you have a lot of sunlight on it, that having a self-appointed board would be one of the last things you'd want to do.
Right, and I'm sure there are differences in terms of membership, but a person can be a member of the Iditarod Trail Committee as easily as paying $20, $30, or $40. I don't know exactly the the amount, but I don't know if that necessarily gives them a vote or not. It's not set up like a huge corporation is, where if you own stock, you can have voting rights and that sort of stuff. This is a much different setup, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that what that is meant to address is the idea that the Iditarod membership might be able to rise up and vote people out. And I don't know currently how many members of the board are voted on and how many are appointed. Um, so I think that some of them were voted on and some and most were appointed. So I think that this is just eliminating that possibility. They also said that the board is considering having an ex officio member who is part of the Iditarod Official Finishers Club, who would be able to attend board meetings and have a voice in all of the sessions, including the executive sessions, but would just not be a voting member of the board.
I find that out of all of the things that they're talking about, I find that one the most troubling, at least from a musher's perspective. Now they have created a position for this person, and I'm sure it'll be somebody higher up in that finishers club. It just won't be a member of that club, so it'll be their president or whatever they have listed as director or whatever that is. But it's interesting that they don't have a vote. I find that really interesting and a little bit troubling that they have the ability to sit in and make recommendations on, but they cannot have any sort of official voice. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm with you on that one as well. I think that if they're going to be participating, especially if it's only one spot on the board, I don't know that it doesn't. I'm sure there are reasons for it. It doesn't strike me that that's the best way to proceed.
Right, and then the other one that you mentioned in passing there about the positions for uh, family members or participants in the race, sort of that nepotism part of the board. I know that there's been some problems with that in the past. I know that John Baker's brother, I believe his name is Andy, was on the board and made some decisions for the race in that position. Of course, that could be construed as a little bit interesting, considering they has a family member in the race. I also know that Dee Dee Genreau's husband has been on the board for quite a while, and of course she has been a very active musher and Iditarod for years. But again, what's interesting with that, as you mentioned with the last position, that is only one vote. So if there's a board of 10 or 12 or however many are, if you only have a couple of abstainers in their voting, whether it be this person that has an interest in it because their family members are racing, or this finishers club position, that's not necessarily going to sway the vote unless it's a really close call. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And while I understand there's a need to balance these things, um, I think one of the dangers of a rule like this is there's a lot of really uh, deep institutional knowledge that a lot of people who've been around the sport and have been around Iditarod for a very long time have. And I believe Dan Seavey has been a member of the Iditarod board for a long time. And certainly Dan Seavey is someone who knows more about mushing and the history of mushing than almost anyone. And to not have a voice like that on the board, um, just because his family is very heavily involved in the race, and Mitch and his son Mitch and his grandson Dallas are multiple winners of the race. I'm not exactly sure that getting rid of someone like Dan Seavey and all of his accumulated knowledge is the best thing to do.
Right. And the last thing that they're considering is something we talked about on our last episode when we talked about sort of this off-season stuff with Iditarod, is decreasing the number of dogs. And I know that we talked about it when Jeff King brought up some proposed rule changes, and he wanted to go down to 14 dogs. And they are taking this under consideration. And it's interesting that there's probably going to be a lot of blowback from this one, especially from the mushing community. It has happened in the past. I guess it says back in the day they were running with up to 20 dogs, and that went down to 16. And now they want to go down into a little bit further with 14. What are your thoughts on that? I know we kind of hashed this out a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing to do, and I don't know that just changing the number of dogs alone would make a huge difference. But one of the things that we talked about last time and that Jeff King talked about was, among other things, having, maybe raising the minimum number of dogs you have to have when you finish, or perhaps having rules where you can't drop dogs once you're on the coast. That's something that's been discussed as well. And I think that it's whatever the rule change is, it's going to really change up a lot of people's strategy. And if anything that we can do that will make it a safer race and a race where strategy plays a bigger role, I'm in favor of that. I don't feel as a non-musher that I actually know enough to know what the practical difference would be between having 16 dog teams and having 14 dog teams.
Well, just from my experience as a musher, I think it really comes into play that first third of the race. And that's where a lot of injuries are happening. That's where a lot of problems are happening with the mushers. That's where a lot of equipment is getting broken and that sort of thing as they head over the what they call the steps and then down into the gorge and that really treacherous portion of the trail, that sort of the first third of it. I think if they could just slow those dog teams down just a little bit and give a little bit more control for the mushers with having slower teams through that section, I think that would be beneficial, especially for some of the less experienced mushers. And remember, just because you're a rookie doesn't necessarily mean you're an inexperienced musher. One name that comes to mind is Jesse Holmes this year, who ran as a rookie. He's been mushing for a heck of a long time. He's ran Yukon Quest and done all sorts of races and done very well. But he was a rookie this year, and he was sort of quote unquote treated as a rookie during the year, meaning he had to finish Iditarod before he became a veteran. So I think it would be good just in terms of sort of slowing the race down a little bit. Now I know a lot of people would think, well, how much difference is two dogs going to make in the team from 16 to 14? And it's not necessarily speed, it's about power. And when you have an extra couple of dogs there on your team, that's a considerable amount of power that you're adding or taking away just by having a couple of dogs on there. And I know you have from personal experience, Alex, only being on a dog team one time. You had an 8-dog team with you, I believe, and there's a considerable amount of power there with just 8 dogs, isn't there?
Oh yeah, it's amazing how and not to say anything bad about your dogs, but certainly your dog. There's a difference between your dogs and say Nick Pettit's dogs.
Right, of course.
But even with those dogs who are who are great dogs and very, very powerful dogs, having 8 of them is an enormous amount of power. So I would imagine that if you cut the number of dogs down from 16 to say 14, maybe that would cause fewer injuries, fewer human injuries, fewer dog injuries, just by slowing it down just a little bit, taking a little bit of the power away so that it was a more easily controlled dog team.
Exactly. And I do like how it would change strategy. I think that would be an interesting concept to introduce to Iditarod now that they have a different number of dogs on the team and how you're going to drop dogs or what dogs you're going to start with and that sort of thing. I think that would be an interesting strategy going into it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that changing it up just a little bit, things can't stay the same forever. Things have to progress. And I think this would be a good way to see it start. So what are your overall thoughts on this sort of off-season meeting, Alex, and sort of moving forward, going into the next meeting, which I think is sometime later in the month?
I think that the board changes are a very good idea, and getting rid of some of the conflicts of interest is a very good idea. I'm with you in that I worry that eliminating a voting member of the board from the finishers club, I'm not sure that that's the best approach. Um, and again, I worry about losing the sort of institutional knowledge that you get from a lot of people who have been personally and had their families very involved in the race for many, many years. Um, on the other hand, I recognize that it seems like there really is a need for something to be done. And my hope is that this is the first round of changes and won't be the final say of how things will be for 10 years, but maybe we can make some changes, they can make some changes this year, figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then make some tweaks in the next few years, just so that everything is a little bit more transparent, works a little bit better, and results in a safer and more enjoyable race for both the mushers and the fans.
I have one final thought on that. We've talked a lot about comparing and contrasting with other sports on this show a lot. And, it's interesting that there is such a voice now from not only the players or participants in the Iditarod, but also such a voice from the fans and how those fans can literally make a difference. And I don't think that is the same in other sports. I just don't see how they would change up the board in the NFL, removing Roger Goodell, who is the commissioner, just because there was a fan protest. I don't see how fans have much of a say in this, and I think that's what a lot of fans are expecting, that their voices will be heard and acted upon just because they're fans of the race. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, to have sort of your watching public make the rules of the race or the recommendations for the board. I think that could go down a very deep rabbit hole.
It really could. And, it's interesting whenever we compare the Iditarod to these other major sports. Professional football is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Iditarod is probably a several million-dollar industry. And so there's a big difference in scale. And one of the great things about Iditarod is because it's a relatively smaller, the fans are able to get access to the teams, to the competitors, to the mushers, to the IOC members, sorry, ITC members. They're able to get a lot of access that you just don't get in ordinary sports. And that's both good and bad. It's good in that it lets people feel more involved. It lets them feel like they have more of a personal stake. But I think it also can be bad in that sometimes the fans feel, rightly so, that this race is more about them, and really it's about the dogs and it's about the mushers. And the fans are important, but the fans aren't what make this work.
Right, I agree with you there, fully for sure. So, Alex, any other closing thoughts here? And if not, we definitely want to make sure that our fans of the show. What are your thoughts on this? And I know that's kind of calling the kettle black, so to speak, because we just said that the fans should not have necessarily a huge voice in this. But I think our listeners have some valuable input. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I just realized as I was saying that as someone who comes into this as a fan, it's strange for me to say that it's not about the fans and that the fans shouldn't be able to decide it. But I am very, very curious to see what people have to say about this. There's been a lot of very, very lively debate on Facebook and on social media, and I would just love to hear what fans of our show have to say about what they would like to see and what their reaction to these changes and these proposed changes would be.
Very good. So Alex and I will probably be back on the air if there's more information that comes out on this next meeting. I believe he said it's on April 26th. So we'll give our listeners sort of our take on it and what our thoughts and feelings are about it if there is new information that comes out. So with that, Alex, it's been a pleasure as always to have you back on, and enjoy the springtime down there in LA.
Yes, and you enjoy Breakup, which I think is happening, or hopefully will be happening soon.
It is. It's always muddy and nasty during this time of year, but the dogs are getting a well-reserved vacation, which is always nice. So thanks again for everybody that's listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.
Hi, this is Alex Stein, co-host of Mushing Radio on Dogworks Radio. We just completed our first storytelling season on the 1925 Serum Run. Almost 100 years later, the 1925 Serum Run is something that is still inspirational, amazing, and in many ways larger than life. We've gathered all of these episodes together on one page to make it easier for you to listen to them in order. Just go to dogworksradio.com/serumrun. That's SERUMRUN, no space, dogworksradio.com/serumrun. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to Dogworks Radio at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever it is that you go to listen to podcasts.
If you like our podcast, there are a few things you can do. You can take a couple of minutes and go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also check out all of our Dogworks Radio sponsors and promotions in our show notes. Another thing you can do is go over to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and one last thing, please tell all of your friends by spreading the word about Dogworks Radio. Thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate you.
Dogworks Radio is produced by Robert Forto. Logo art by Angry Squirrel Studios. Dogworks Radio is produced in conjunction with KVRF 89.7 in Palmer, Alaska.
For dog training advice, you can contact Alaska Dog Works at 907-841-1686 or visit their website at alaskadogworks.com. If you have a show idea or would like to be a guest, please contact us by sending an email to live@dogworksradio.com.